So what I'd like to talk to you today is a little about thinking beyond the single image and thinking in terms of story, because we really do, everything that we do these days is revolving around story. Magazines publish stories and stuff. If you're doing a gallery exhibit or something, it's about single images. But I find that to raise the level of your photography, stop thinking of yourself as merely a photographer. All these new outlets, web portals, corporate clients, editorial publications are all about stories, not necessarily individual pictures. Anyone can grab an occasional great shot. You know what the news guys say, the secret to a great news photograph is F8 and be there. And Andy made a great point about the harder you work, the luckier you get, and that's true. But you can cherry pick a portfolio that shows the best 10 shots of the last 10 years that were all kind of luck. But if you're shooting the story, it makes you become more proactive. So and today we're expected to be photojournalists, visual storytellers. All these new outlets for our stories. There used to be magazines. Remember magazines? God, but now you have all these online magazines, Maptia and a couple other places that are running these stories, these photo essays. So trying to tell a story of your travels will cause you to become more proactive and less reliant on luck and inspiration. I think Andy put this kind of to bed this morning with talking about luck. Photographers that do travel are the guys that get paid to go on vacation, right? That's the easy stuff. But in reality, and they think that it's a matter of Andy going over and sipping some wine and saying, oh, the light is nice over there, and taking a picture and being inspired. He's working hard. He's working there. He's out every morning, out every afternoon. So am I. And so inspiration, as they like to say down at the Geographic, inspiration is for amateurs. So if you become, to master your travel photography, you've got to master visual storytelling. So I've been shooting now, I shot my first assignment for a Geographic publication in 1980, and I made it right through to the Murdoch era, and I'm still shooting some video for them. But one of the things that I do to make myself more proactive when I go to a location is to give myself kind of an outline of the types of pictures I need to get. Because left to my own devices, I probably shoot all people and some landscapes. That would be, and that's a very nice essay, but it's not a real story. So what I do before I go off on an assignment is I make myself a little, for lack of a better word, a shopping list. And these are some of the items I put on there. Wine. No, geography. Okay, you're telling a story of a place. You've got to show what the place looks like. So if it's a story about Tuscany, it's the landscapes and everything. If it's a city story about Rome, it's the skylines. People, local characters, and visitors. If I'm shooting for National Geographic, the regular magazine that shows how people live there, I'm shooting local people. If I'm shooting for Traveler magazine, that shows what visitors do when they come to a place, I'm shooting visitors, enjoying themselves as well as the local characters. So people, both local characters and, depending on the client, visitors, tourists doing stuff. How do you get a visual depiction of culture? Writers have it so easy. They can write about, Leonardo da Vinci was the this and that. And, we can't go back. We are stuck in the present. So we have to somehow capture the culture of an area in the present day. And a lot of that involves maybe performing arts, shooting theater, music, that kind of thing. Going into museums, not to shoot copy work of the art or anything, but just to get the feel of what the cultural life is in that city or area. Festivals and special events. This is really, really important. As the world becomes more kind of homogenized, more and more people are inside on their Facebook accounts, wherever you go, or watching cable or satellite television. It's only now some special events, some festivals that get people out on the street where they can be photographed, sometimes in their historical garb or whatever. So it's not unusual for me to schedule an entire assignment around some festival or special event. And it doesn't have to be something big. I mean, you know, even when you get to a country, what I'll often do, if I can't read the language, I'll ask somebody to read me what's on in Siena this week. And if there's something going on at the cathedral on Sunday morning, I'll be there because I know people will be there and everything. So festivals and special events. Everyday life, the neighborhoods and street scenes. This is a very, very tough category because you have to make interesting pictures of mundane stuff. You're going to shoot a story on Manhattan, you got to get a feel for the streets. You can only show so many of those skylines, and that's all well and good, but at one point you're going to have to get on 9th Avenue and make an exciting picture of the street life there. So everyday life is another category. Sports and recreation. What do the locals do to recreate? You know, when I go to England, I'm going to shoot something that's uniquely English, cricket playing. You know, I'll go shoot a soccer game or something in Italy, where people. You know, what do the locals do to recreate? What do visitors do when they come there? Some places in the world you go to, wildlife is a big part of the story. So that's another category. If you're shooting for a magazine, you're going to have to shoot food, lodging, shopping, and nightlife. My least favorite categories. I've reached an age now where I have to go to bed early enough to get up late enough to go out to shoot nightlife. You know, so and food. You know, I can give you some quick advice on food. First you shoot it, then you eat it. Lodging, shopping, you got to do it if you're working professionally for magazines, because that's seems to be what most people do when they travel is shop. And natural resources. What does the area you are visiting? What does it specialize in? What does it make? What does it mine? What natural resources are there that might make it unusual? History. How can we visually signify significant events or sites and make interesting pictures of the historical landscape? And finally, the oddities, funkiness, and serendipity. You know, what's different there? What's different there than at home? So you see here, I've got a plan. And when I get off the plane and I get to the hotel room and I'm jet lagged, and this is usually what happened the last 20 years, I would be there and I'd be so intimidated by Buenos Aires. You know, I was like, how the heck, this city is as big as the state of New Jersey, you know, and how am I going to make a meaningful picture story in like the 9 days I have? So I usually call up my wife and I say, honey, I got to get out of this business. I can't do this anymore. It's so intimidating. I just don't want to leave the hotel. And she's like, get your list out, start shooting, go shoot some, street scenes. And she talks me off the ledge. And then, as I get more comfortable in the location and I'm shooting and I'm getting some of this stuff, by the end of the stay, I'm on the phone with her saying, hey, I just put a deposit down in the townhouse in the Recoleta neighborhood. I love it here, But there's a transition that I go through with each and every assignment. And the great National Geographic photographer Jody Cobb was well known, at least after the first time it happened, for sending in her letter of resignation the first 2 weeks of her assignment. So the first time they got it down there, it's like, geez, Jody resigned. Oh my God, what are we going to do? And by the time the letter, this is, we're talking a while ago. So by the time the letter got there, it was not an email, it was a letter. They'd call her up and say, Jody, you okay? And she's like, yeah, I love this place. And they said, but you resigned. Oh, I didn't resign. And after that, the next assignment, another thing happened. The first week she resigned. And it was just like, oh, that's Jody resigning, And so we all go through this period of discomfort when we're out of our own circle of comfort. And I find that these categories help me keep things straight. So I'm going to just take one of these stories and we're going to kind of break it down and analyze it according to these categories. But before I go there, I want to just say another thing. Besides the content, the types of pictures, I like to talk about the types of shots that we're going to use as well to create a visual narrative. We're going to have wide establishing shots. We're going to have medium views. We're going to have portraits or two people in the frame. We're going to have close-ups and details, point of view shots. As you saw this morning, Andy, his piece was so well paced with big wide landscapes. Then he'd come in tight on a face. Then he'd pull back and show us a little more of a winery or something. Then he'd come in tight again. Then he'd go back wide. There's a pacing. There's a visual grammar to telling a visual story, and we all know it because we have all grown up with television and the movies. And I like to say that if you, the best training that you can get to kind of see how these shots are used to tell a visual story is to take your favorite TV drama and watch it for 15 minutes with the sound turned down. Important that the sound is turned down, because if the sound is turned up, you'll start to get involved in the story, and that's not what you're there for. You're there to watch how the editor and the director of photography pace the shots. So if you take, like Law and Order, right? It's on 24 hours a day in every country in the world, so you can see it anywhere. And you have that bump, bump, wide establishing shot, New York skyline. Bump, bump, medium view, detectives Briscoe and Green walking down 9th Avenue. Bump, bump, close-up of Detective Briscoe saying to Detective Green, "Man, it's hot out here. Can't wait to get to the air-conditioned station and eat some lunch." Bump, bump, close-up shot. There's a close-up of a body in the gutter with a knife in its neck. Bump, bump, point of view from the corpse looking up at Lenny saying, "I guess it's going to be skipping lunch today." And in the first 13 seconds, you've got the entire story there, because this is the way we tell visual stories. This becomes really, really more important as you get into video and you get into motion, but it's really important when you're shooting stills as well. So let's look at a story I did several years ago on Bora Bora and Moorea, 5 days on each island for National Geographic Traveler. Now, the overall shot, the all-important overall shot, Bora Bora, Bali High, right? You can't, there are no other mountains, so you have to shoot from the air. And shooting from the air, you have to use a high shutter speed and everything. I was given a budget of about $400 for aerials, and the only thing I could find that would fly was a French helicopter that cost $1,600, so 15 minutes I had. 15 minutes in the air. I did my wide establishing shots. I did them horizontally, vertically. I did close-ups and scale. Things of scale are important, because when you're getting around coral reefs like this, if it wasn't for the boat in there, this could be like a close-up microscopic slide of the Ebola, or whatever. But because we see that little boat there, we know what we're looking at. I take advice about going to, if it says there's a great view here, I go up there. I go up during the day, and I'll go back at night. And I was so happy to hear Andy this morning make the point, go back to the same place. If there's something nice, go back in different lighting conditions, go back in different weather conditions. This is not an admission that you made a mistake the first time. This is how professionals work. They just pound it out. One of my great role models at the Geographic retired recently, James Stanfield, known for his great eye, his great versatility, and his ferocious tenacity. He had a story on Istanbul, and he got permission to go up in one of the towers of the Hagia Sophia to shoot sunrise. He did it for 26 days in a row until he was satisfied that he had gotten it. So going back to the same place over and over again, not an admission of failure. This is the way the pros do it. I scheduled my whole thing around Bastille Day. It's French Polynesia, so I knew they'd be celebrating. The ladies with the hats, the young swains of the village go on the fruit race. That thing of fruit there, 70 pounds, and whoever races around the island and makes it back first and alive wins. So we got our culture. There was a little parade, and another tip that I like to give you is if you're covering a parade or a procession, go early and where they meet and look around the meeting spot and look around the edges of any event. So these girls were tickling each other with palm fronds waiting to go, and it made for a cute little moment. The older ladies greeting each other before they lined up to march. So anytime you do get to cover a special event, a parade, go early and go to where they assemble, and you'll get some of your best shots there. Shooting the hotel, I tried, shooting it through the screen. And then I tried getting in the water and shooting it half over, half under to show the hotel. And these kind of shots done with a housing and a big dome port. These kind of shots are pretty popular in the scuba magazines, but you don't see too much of it in the travel magazines. But and it sure beat trying to set up lights inside or something like that. So we're shooting, showing where we're staying, the lodging, foods. Remember, food. food, the tuna ceviche that they do, and they do it in a coconut milk down there, and that's kind of unique to French Polynesia. So we're looking for things that are food that's unique from the area. We're looking to characterize our location in as many different ways as we can. The natural products, there's only one natural product down there, and it's black pearls. And I spent, gosh, a very frustrating afternoon with a pearl diver who would dive off the side of the boat, and I'd dive after him with my housing, and he would just like shoot down to the bottom, and I'd get down about 5 feet and just start floating up because I'm kind of buoyant, you know, compared to the average pearl diver, you know. Compared to the average 3 pearl divers, I'm still probably outweigh those guys. So we went to a pearl shop and we did some close-ups and stuff like that. You know, getting out early, staying out late, you get the occasional lucky rainbow. My research indicated that there was a guy on Moorea who liked to, he had this village where he said that we were going to live traditional Polynesian lifestyle. So I went and I photographed that village, and the way they put bread on the table or put taro on the table is they do folklore dance shows at night for the tourists, and that's how they support themselves. So this is a slow sync flash of torch dance. You will see the torch dance in every Polynesian folklore show on the face of the earth. But it's not culturally Polynesian. It was developed by a Scottish hotelier named Aggie Gray in the 30s in Samoa. She was like, you know, your hula's got not enough oomph for the ladies, so, you know, the dancing ladies kept the guys interested, but for the ladies in the audience, she had her guys start juggling fire, and now it's a Polynesian tradition. It's great pictures, whatever it is. I'll follow any kind of tip or lead. I saw this big yellow canoe parked in front of a little hut, and I went in, knocked on the door, and I met this guy, Patrick Tairua. I said, "Is that your, you know, beautiful canoe?" And he said, "Yeah." He says, "I give tours of the reef." And so we went out on the reef, and we photographed some of the sharks and the rays that were out there. He chummed for them, and so we're going underwater now. Sports and recreation. What do visitors do? They go snorkeling. So you see that each one of these shots, they're all nice shots, but they're not random things that popped up in front of me. They are things that I went after. I like to say that by the time you do your work and everything, taking the picture is almost an afterthought. You know, you get them in the right light, you find the right light, you move them there, and the actual taking of the picture is the end of a long series of events that happened before, and the picture is the culmination, and it's almost the anticlimax because you've done all the hard work ahead of time that way. So here we are. We're shooting some of the wildlife here, the manta rays, using the over and under. And you know, big wide opening shot. I thought, wow, this could be a pretty good opening, but the art director rather put it on the cover. We had an art director down there who really loved photography because you could tell by how he protects the picture with so many words. Nobody's going to get into that picture, you know, he's got so many words around it. But anyway, you never know. Using your other senses to find pictures. I was getting ready to go out for a late afternoon drive around for some landscapes, and I heard some drums, and there was Patrick Tairua's folklore group doing a reenacted Polynesian wedding for a couple that were on their honeymoon, and they were dancing and having fun. So we're getting what do visitors do at the location. So you see, we're telling that story. We're filling in those categories. Culture, besides the pearls, the Polynesian tradition of tattooing is a big thing. And I was coming near the end of the assignment, and I didn't have as much cultural coverage that I wanted. So I picked up the Yellow Pages. Remember the Yellow Pages? And I looked up tattoo artists. And I looked up this guy, Renui, and I gave him a call, and he said, "Yeah, come by the house." And he said it in French, at sunset, and we'll do something. So I went there, and with a small flash through a small umbrella, we did a series of about 40 shots before the rains came. But this guy was one of the most graceful subjects I've ever had in front of the camera, and we got our story shot. So you see there, just in analyzing that, how we use those categories to make our shooting more proactive and less reactive. not waiting for inspiration to hit us, putting ourselves in place for inspiration to hit us. You know, my dear friend and colleague, Jim Richardson, likes to say when he's reviewing photographers' portfolios, he said, if you want to become a better photographer, you're going to have to stand in front of more interesting stuff. And I think Andy will back me up here. A lot of what you do is research before that. You find that good view, you find that cool winery, you find that thing, and then you shoot. So standing in front of more interesting stuff. A few years ago, when they put video capabilities in our cameras, I at first was not interested. And then I started, a good colleague of mine, if you ever get a chance to study with him here in New York, I think he talks here occasionally, Bob Sasha, up and left the Geographic. Said, I'm finished here, I'm going back to school, I'm learning how to shoot video and tell stories, video stories. And I was like, are you insane? You just had this fantastic assignment from Geographic. And he said, no, he said, this is the future. And Bob has been one of my role models for all these years. And so I said, well, if Bob thinks there's something to it, maybe I should think there's something to it. And I started messing around with video. Well, you know, like anything else, it's a lot easier to learn to speak a language, ride a bike, do program code when you're 16 than when you're 60. But if you persevere enough, you can get through. And so what I've been doing in these last 3 or 4 years is really shooting a lot of video. And I'd like to just start off, you know, Andy, we were talking about portfolios. That opening little montage I showed you was stills. We videographers, we cinematographers, we have reels. We don't have portfolios. We call them our reels. So I'd like to show you one of my recent reels to start off with, and then we'll get going. Thank you. So it was when the National Geographic put me on one of these round the world jet trips that they market to the 1%, and they put on a photographer and a archaeologist and an editor, and they asked me, they said, you know, we'd like you to shoot a multimedia slideshow as part of the assignment. And I said, multimedia? You mean, they said a little video. I was like, oh, you know, and I went on that trip with my old DSLR, and it's a very fast moving trip. And by the time I got the loop on the back of the camera and I trussed up my SLR to shoot video, we were getting ready to get back on the plane. Things were going too fast. So that's when I kind of started looking for something, a solution that was smaller, swifter, and more responsive. And I picked up a Sony NEX5N back in the day. And I adapted a couple of my old camera company's lenses to that. And I picked up the viewfinder, and now all of a sudden, if it was sunny, I could just shoot through the viewfinder, and I could do all this stuff. And I was like, "Holy smokes! These things are small and light." And the older and heavier I get, the smaller and lighter I like my cameras to be. That was the beginning of my kind of romance with using the Sony gear. And then the next year, I bought a second body and a couple more lenses. And then I had de facto switched over to being a mirrorless shooter, but I was, as I said earlier, keeping it under the table because I didn't know how to deal with it. Basically, that I had fallen in love with another system. It was like contemplating divorce, but I couldn't deny it after a while, and here I am today. So the migration from stills to video, too many people look at it as something like going from this to this, and then they get intimidated and they want to go home, but it doesn't have to be this way. But we all have the skills as still shooters. We just don't really realize it yet. We know about composition. We know about light. We know about moment. Remember back in 1994, when my first book about travel photography, Spirit of Place, came out, I kind of came up with the thing that a good still photograph has three elements: light, composition, moment. We all know about that. We all know basically about storytelling because we've been watching visual stories since we were in diapers. We're all articulate consumers of visual storytelling. So it's not too much of a leap to unleash that great vast storehouse of knowledge that you have. And we know something about pacing. But where we fall down as still photographers going into video is that we have, as a still photographer, we want to try to tell the whole story in one picture. I started my career right across the river, directly across the river in beautiful Union City, New Jersey, at the Hudson Dispatch, a paper fondly known by its readers as the Hudson Disgrace. We were trained to get it all in one shot. Get the fireman, carrying the kitten with the burning building in the background. Get it all in one shot. As videographers, we have to sequence that. We have to break it down into sequences. So we want to overcome our tendency to get it all in one shot. Video is about breaking down a process into pieces, not summing it up into one killer shot, as we try to do in still shooting. And what this is called shooting in sequences. And this is where a lot of still photographers fall down when they start shooting video, because they find a beautiful composition and they just leave it there, and you can't do that. So let's go back and look at the 5 angles, and let's also talk about the 5 shots in video. And this again, 5 is an arbitrary number, but you'll get the feeling of it. The 5 angles, we've gone over that, and with the requisite law and order storytelling thing. Overall establishing shot, medium view, close up, extreme close up, point of view shot. Okay, but now there's the 5 shots of breaking down a sequence. And again, depending on what you're shooting, this is going to vary. But let's just say, let's take an action like we're going to do a story on the oldest shoemaking shop in Manhattan, Geppetto Shoemaker, right? So we're going to go into, and there's Geppetto making shoes. So we're going to go and we're going to do a close-up of the action, his hands pounding the nails into the leather. A close-up of the reaction to the action, or who is conducting the action. So we'll go up and we'll get a close-up of his face. A point of view shot by the person conducting the action. We'll go around behind Geppetto and shoot down over his shoulder and looking at him doing this with his hands. A shot establishing where the action is taking place. So we'll pull back and get a wide shot of his quaint shop with the shoes hanging and the sign that says Geppetto's, and we'll see him working there. And a creative beauty shot or close-up that ties into the action. And those are basically the 5 shots. When you've covered the 5 shots of an action using more than one of 5 angles, you've created what a video editor would call a sequence, and it can be edited. So this is really, really important for us as still photographers, if we're going to move into motion and tell stories, to learn to analyze a scene and break it down as much as we can. One thing I've learned since shooting video is, they say you can't be too rich or too thin. You can't have too many close-ups either. Close-ups are very good tools. Cutaways, they're also called, for editors to move from one sequence to another. So let's watch how a typical sequence is shot. These are 2 kids giving one kid giving another kid a music lesson in a classroom. It's from a nonprofit, a video for a nonprofit that works in inner city Camden and Trenton that I do some work for. And just notice it's 2 kids sitting there, but let's see how that sequencing works.
Seeing Alexander Cummings play after he had been at Oberlin for 2 years now. He's going into his junior year. And I remember starting Alex when he was a little kid, little long-armed kid walking in the band room. He's a testament to, what it is you can do after hard work, and after hard work you will be rewarded. After he's traveled to China, performed with Stevie Wonder, he took time out to pay it forward and come back to the camp this summer and work with the kids.
So there you see how we broke it down. And by the way, if you do want to see Alexander Cummings play, he's got his own 5-piece band. He plays the jazz clubs here in Manhattan. That's how talented this kid is. But anyway, that's off topic. But so you see how we broke that simple thing of one kid giving another kid a lesson, faces, hands, back to the 2-shot, back to the face, back to the hand. And this is the way we shoot video. And because of that, you cannot overemphasize the importance of close-ups. You avoid the dreaded jump cut, which is a cut from one frame to another that looks kind of the same. It spoils continuity and it looks weird. So if you want to go from a frame like that to a frame like this, you don't jump from one to the other. You go first, you'll go from that frame to a close-up of her, to a close-up of the baby, and then back to the second frame. So to avoid the jump cut. So close-ups. You cannot emphasize this at all. Another thing that we still shooters have trouble with is illustrating the passage of time, because we're trained to track the action. Wherever the action goes, that's where we're going to go. But we also tend to jump cut. We are not trained to let the action move through the frame, in the frame and out of the frame. We want to follow it all the time, so you can always tell a beginning videographer, because it looks like a fireman was holding the camera and spraying, waving back and forth. It's called fire hosing. No, let somebody walk through and walk out of the camera, out of your frame. You don't want to fire hose. Let the subject enter or leave the frame for a natural movement of time. There are natural places to cut. And you use close-ups or cutaways to move from one scene to the next to avoid jump cutting. There's 2 kinds of styles out there. There's a broadcast style and there's a cinematic style of video storytelling. So, the evolution of online video, early adopters used the TV news model, using small chip video cameras with interlaced frames. Broadcast news, the look of a news broadcast rather than a Hollywood movie. It usually meant using an on-camera presenter or voiceover to walk you through the piece. And it's very expository, and unless you have a great presenter, it can be painful to watch and downright inauthentic. I've been a professional travel photographer for 30 some odd years. There's a ton of travel shows on television. There's only one guy I can watch, Tony Bourdain. Another Jersey boy. He says he's from New York, but he's from Leonia, New Jersey. And he's a great, authentic presenter. A lot of these other ones with the kids saying, hey, let's go jump, bungee jump. And I'm like, really? You have no connection to what you're doing and everything. So the mannequin, the host can be Mannequin, the voiceovers can be a little bit Morgan Freeman wannabes. So what I'd like to do is show you now 2 approaches to a story. The story is about a very well-known American woodworker, Japanese-American woodworker named George Nakashima, who's down from my area, Bucks County. His stuff is in the White House. He's been very famous. He spent time in an internment camp as a young man. He's passed away now. His daughter runs his business. And this first clip from an unknown source, and I won't play too much of it, but it'll give you the idea, is the TV newscast model. And then we'll look at a cinematic model to see what I'm talking about.
Each piece of Japanese-American designer George Nakashima's unique furniture is dictated by the natural shape and the grain of the walnut, redwood, and maple trees he used. Since Nakashima's death in 1990, demand for his original work has soared, along with his influence on contemporary furniture makers. A selection of 60 Nakashima originals is currently on display at the Sebastian Barkat Gallery in Chelsea. Today on Gorgeous, we visit with the exhibit's curator, Sebastian E., to learn more about the enduring appeal of this extraordinary designer.
But you see, it's basically expository. They're telling us, they're not showing us. It's standard definition, it's not particularly good cinematography or whatever. And that's the way television broadcast news has broadcast the news to us since time immemorial. But the movies show us a different way, a more involved, kind of first-person way of getting involved in things. So here's a cinematic, more of a cinematic first-person take on the Nakashima woodworking story.
My father once said that a tree is perhaps our most intimate contact with nature, that each tree had its own particular destiny. He strove to make that happen, and we're still doing that today. We believe in hand craftsmanship. We believe that each plank of each tree has a particular characteristic and a particular destiny, and that needs to be manifested for everyone who comes to us to make a piece of furniture. Some of our people spent years working side by side with my father. Some came after he passed away, but each and every one of them shared Dad's devotion to meticulous craftsmanship and his attention to detail. A piece of handcrafted furniture is very different. It has a different feel, it has a different quality, has a different character, has a different personality from a piece of furniture that's not made by hand. And it has an effect on your environment because it's made with respect to the tree it came from. To make a piece of furniture that's unique for each person is a long and difficult process, from the selection of wood, through the design development, through the craftsmanship process. It's long and difficult, but when you end up with something beautiful and useful at the end, it's all worth the trouble, and we love it.
What you see there is a more cinematic approach. Everything, the pacing of the shots, the music, the fact that I chose to not include any power tools at all, and everything. Everything was designed to give you the feel of how long it takes these guys to, the handcrafted wood shop. So there you see the difference between that TV broadcast kind of thing where some talking head is telling you what you're seeing and what you should know, as opposed to seeing it in a visual way and feeling it more. It's a little more cinematic and storytelling. Now, how does this apply to travel? This is our travel day, right? Well, there's some travel stuff coming up. The evolution of online video continued. Large chip, small size, mirrorless, and DSLR cameras can bring a cinematic look to our video. The reason is that we're using larger sensors, and we can get that narrow depth of field. Traditional broadcast video cameras have 3 very small chips, and everything is always in focus from here to infinity. So there's none of that shallow depth of field. And when 35 millimeter digital cameras came out and could shoot video, the indie film community went nuts, because now they could make films with inexpensive cameras that look like the big Hollywood things, the big Hollywood productions. That meant that smaller crews, 1 to 2 person crews with small cranes, dollies, and cameras, can get big production company high definition results. It's a style that seeks to engage the viewer as a movie engages the viewer. Cinematography, the beauty of the image, takes on more importance. Story is moved through a hopefully interesting and articulate character who is part of the place and not a detached host, or music and images and possibly voiceover suffice to tell a more impressionistic story. So how does this apply to travel? But the basic thing is, you're not telling video is not made there to tell people what to do. You're showing them. Don't tell me, show me. So let's look at 2 approaches, a broadcast approach and a more cinematic approach to a beautiful travel destination like Salzburg, Austria. And we're going to watch just about 30 seconds of a
Trip south is a day-long excursion to the city of the sound of music. Its setting goes with the story. A beautiful, clean, historic city, and there is much to see and do. Part of Salzburg's history involves the birthplace of physicist Christian Doppler. The Baroque Mirabelle Palace is surrounded by formal gardens, statues, flower beds, and grand walkways. And today it houses administrative offices of the city. Most every area of the city is decorated for the season.
About you, but I want to go. Really, come on. This is if this video is going to be used to sell a destination, there's a better way to do it. A couple years ago, I had an opportunity to go back there. I've covered Salzburg over the years for about 6 different magazines, different times, and it's one of my favorite cities. And Advent, the time that we're in now, is one of my favorite times. So I'm going to show you. This was done for National Geographic Traveler's website, and it won a nice broadcast award. But I just want to warn you, at the end, there's this little tradition in the mountainous areas of Austria and Slovenia and some of those, called the Krampus. So this all starts all sweetness and light, and near the end, these monsters show up, and it's not you're not having an LSD flashback. It's actually happening up there. These guys they come the night before St. Nicholas comes, and they scare the evil spirits out. So don't be afraid. You're not tripping when you see this. But here's a little more cinematic approach that I feel kind of maybe without words tells a better story about Salzburg. The importance of story. Beautiful visuals and evocative music will hold attention for only so long. For some pieces, there needs to be a story for your audience to follow. Engage your audience, find an engaging story. Whether it's a Hollywood movie or a 3-minute mini documentary for the web, stories have the same basic structure since man began telling tales around the fire. You find an appealing character or characters, you take them on a journey, you watch them overcome conflicts and obstacles, you see how it changes them. And that's the basic, every Hollywood movie you watch. I just saw the Spotlight, that great film about the Boston Globe and the scandal up in Boston. And I went into the movie as a budding filmmaker saying, I'm going to watch the conflicts and watch these characters overcome conflicts. And in the first 3 minutes, everybody had a conflict, and there were more conflicts going on, and that's what sucks you into the story. You have a character you care about, and he or she has a conflict or a problem that has to be solved. And so when I'm analyzing my what could possibly be a good story for a short video, I use what I call Sasha's Law. Bob Sasha came up with, and I'm sure people have come up with it before, but I learned these from him. Character. Is there a main character through whom the story can be told? Is he or she interesting and able to communicate the story? Are there supporting people who can help corroborate and support the main character? Story arc. Is there a process with a beginning, middle, and end? Does the character go through a change, overcome an obstacle, or resolve a conflict? Visual. Is there a process the characters are going through that's visible and visual? Can it be seen? So, you might say, well, gosh, I'd love to make a video about my meditation teacher. There's okay, yeah. There's something going on in his head, but we can't see it. So make the video about your yoga teacher, because that you can see, Leave the meditation teacher alone. It's not a good subject. Access. Will they allow you to witness the process? Can you physically get close enough to record the story? And finally, time. Do you have enough time to witness and film the evolution of the process? That's those 5 rubrics. If you pass on 4 out of 5 of those, you probably got something that could be a good story. Open with your best, another simple story, open with your best visual, introduce your main character, state the problem or topic, show your character going through a process. Does the process change or reveal something? And wrap it up with a kicker. I think I got time to do this. This is a story about French cowboys who are dying out. They're called the Guardians. And I found an older guy, and I did an audio-only interview with him, and I was going to do a sit-down interview, but he got called away and everything. But this is a story about the dying tradition of the French cowboy in the Camargue and the white horses. It has subtitles. I apologize. So you're going to have to listen to some French, but the pictures are nice. So, but it's there's a little conflict in here. These cowboys are dying out. What are going to happen to the horses and the bulls in the whole area if the cowboys can't make enough money to live? And that's the basic thrust of this. We don't meet ideally, I would have liked to have more time with the cowboy, but the horses are very visual. But so here's a little. You can see the story arc in this.
À partir de 1500, ouais, la confrérie des gardiens a vu le jour. La confrérie des gardiens, c'était peut-être la première confrérie professionnelle en Europe. Au quotidien, celui qui est dans les bêtes, qui est l'œil dans les bêtes, c'est le gardien. C'est le garant de l'espèce bovine et des chevaux de Camargue. La Camargue, on ne connaissait pas l'époque de clôture barbelée, donc ces animaux-là, ils cavalaient, et pour les suivre leur mouvement, il fallait être à cheval. Voilà. D'où l'importance d'être un gardien, c'était un cavalier. Il y a peu de gardiens professionnels. Hein. Il y a à peu près une quarantaine de gardiens, peut-être même pas en active d'ailleurs. Hein. Il y a encore des gardiens professionnels à la retraite. Le troupeau, que ce soit des chevaux, des taureaux, ça demande une gestion permanente. Je pense que sans gardien, la race bovine et la race équine seraient vite menacées. Un mode de vie menacé, oui. C'est un métier qui est mal rémunéré. Hein, c'est un métier qui excède rarement le SMIC. Les 13e mois, il n'y en a pas trop. Des congés, les congés, on les prend quand on peut, si on peut. Hein, donc c'est un métier qui est très dur. Et après, l'autre menace qui peut peser sur notre métier, c'est la pression que l'on a des gens qui sont contre toutes les formes de tauromachie. Par contre, on est présent et passionné. C'est un travail de passionné. Ces gars, tous les gars qui ont fait ce métier, tous, il y en a plein de riches. Par contre, ils sont riches de leur vécu.
Let's talk a little about 4K. It's the monster in the room. 4K or not to 4K. There are advantages and disadvantages. Take a good look at your needs. Don't necessarily be swayed by the hype. Here are some real-world considerations. The size. Look at how you have 4 times the resolution of a 1080p frame. Now, that can be a blessing in most cases, and in some ways a curse, but let's look at the advantages. The advantages of shooting 4K. You have a larger, much more detailed picture that even if you are going to downsize it to 1080p, which most of us will do because the web is still set up for that, although I think YouTube and now also Vimeo is showing 4K, but most clients will still be just wanting HD, but you'll get a much more detailed picture when you downres from 4K to 1080. You can crop into your frame. You've got 4 times the area. So if you want to do a move, a Ken Burns slide in, if you on a stationary video shot, you can do that by shooting 4K because you've got all this extra real estate. So it's a very nice thing to be able to do. You can put moves in across a stationary shot with no loss in quality if you're outputting to 1080p. So it's that other argument for a high megapixel camera. Really, honestly, most of us don't need 43 megapixels or whatever, but we can crop in and get a bird that much closer or whatever, and that's where those extra megapixels and that extra real estate comes in handy. You can shoot a 2-camera interview just by cropping into your angle. The ideal setup is a 2-camera interview with 2 different angles on your speaker, so if he stumbles and you have to cut out an or ah, you jump to the other camera. Well, with a 1080, a 4K frame, you can just crop in and get a tight face shot and go back out, and you have 1 camera and you're shooting a 2-camera interview. And it future-proofs your work. The Corbis Motion, they're asking for all 4K now. A lot of people are asking for 4K. 4K is the future. Who knows, 8K, 12K, whatever. 100K, it's coming. So you're future-proofing your work if you work there. Most stock footage agencies and some clients demand it now. The disadvantages, big file sizes, big files, big files. So you got to have bigger hard drives and whatever. Faster cards are required. You need a gutsy computer to handle these files. This is that shock that everybody has when they move from their first 18 megapixel camera to a 40 megapixel camera, or from HD to 4K. It's not only the camera that you need replacing, it's your computers, it's your hard drives and everything. So, be aware of that. And it's a great excuse. You can tell your significant other, but I need the new computer. I'm shooting 4K now. The hard drives, it's just like, my God, they're everywhere. But you know, with the Sony cameras, you have 4K options at a variety of price points. The little action cam will shoot 4K. The RX100 Mark IV will shoot 4K, beautiful 4K. The RX10 II, my favorite pet camera, shoots 4K, and of course the A7R2 and A7S2. So you can get into 4K fairly inexpensively. That RX100 is, it's like Andy's favorite pet camera, my favorite pet camera, everybody's favorite pet camera. Keep your tripod, but your ball head may have to go, and you may want to get a leveler because there's nothing slower than trying to level your camera by using your tripod legs. Pan heads come in a variety of sizes and shapes. B&H will be able to sell you any or all of these. I like a small pan head that's just big enough. You know, another reason why I work with Sony cameras is they are so lightweight, and I want to work as a one-man band, and I'm going to go right through here really quick. Shaky video, really tough to watch, and one of the reasons why the new R2, A7R2 and the A7S2 are great is, as Andy mentioned, the stabilization for the camera is inside. So you have a stabilizer inside. So if you adapt your old camera's lenses to the Sony or whatever lens you put on there, you can stabilize. You know, sometimes the camera's being so small makes it a little hard to stabilize the camera. So some people get a little carried away. This is, of course, a joke from a joke video about rigs, but some rigs I've seen are not much smaller than this. You know, what I like to do is I like to work with a 3-footed monopod, and that is a really nice way to get your stability but keep your mobility as a video shooter. Manfrotto makes them, but now a number of others brands make them. The one I'm using now is called a Chicken Foot or something by, I forget what the company is, but they have it here. I bought it here. Small shoulder rigs for stabilization. You can, you know, they're lightweight, inexpensive. Tabletop tripods. It's good if you have the shelf there. I call it the shelf. You know, I've developed this just for work. This small table for my tabletop tripod. Continuous light sources. Your flash isn't going to help you here, so we like to use LEDs. Total lights are nice. They're small, but they're too hot and they require being plugged in. So what I travel with is usually some small LED panels. That 312 panel is about 5 by 7. I can fit a couple in my suitcase, and I can prop them up and shoot an interview anywhere I need to. Points to remember about LEDs: some of the older ones and the cheaper ones have a slightly green cast, so buy the highest CRI rated LED you can afford. That 312 is about the largest you'd ever put right on a hot shoe. I like the dual color kinds that go from daylight to tungsten. And always check your battery options. Larger ones sometimes require proprietary rechargeable batteries. Smaller ones may run on AA's. Dimming, the ability to dim it is very nice too. Sliders. You saw some slider work in that Nakashima woodworking video. I always had a camera slightly moving on a crane or a slider. It just gives you those nice moves that look cinematic and look like a big Hollywood production. Some considerations for sliders: can it fit in your luggage? You only need a short slide to make the point if the conditions are right. Wide angle lenses work best. Something in the foreground to slide across is always good. And you know, use the lightest weight camera you can, because if your camera's too heavy, you may have to support your slider on both sides with light stands or 2 tripods. And pulling the camera with a rubber band is always a good way to get a very smooth slide. Essentials for mirrorless video: small shotgun mic, pan tilt head, a tripod leveler, a small on-camera LED light, a lav mic, or an extension cord. And then if you really get hooked, you can start getting into wireless mics, 3-legged monopods, portable sliders, shoulder brace, shooting rig, Steadicam, that kind of a thing. Small jib or crane. Alrighty. Well, thank you very much. We'll be here a little later.
Whether you're a hobbyist or a professional, B&H has the answers to your questions. Experience a world of technology at our New York City Superstore. Connect with us online or give us a call. Our staff of experts is happy to help.